Open Homes Hamilton launched on September 11, 2018, and we chose that date for a reason, because we want to create communities of belonging where there's often distrust or misunderstanding. We want to throw a big, beautiful, diverse party in the face of war and persecution and hate, and we believe that doing that is part of following Jesus. And that's why relating respectfully to Muslims is so important. At this point, about 30% or 1/3 of Open Homes guests have been Muslim from countries like Chad, Yemen, Mali, Iraq. And there have been some really beautiful moments of interreligious dialogue and understanding. I'm not Muslim myself, so I asked a couple Open Homes guests to share a little bit about what might be important for Christians to know about relating respectfully to Muslims. I asked one woman from Nigeria and one man from Yemen. There are 5 important practices in Islam, sometimes called the 5 pillars. And some of these practices are really important in Christianity too, and some are not so much, or at least not emphasized. So the first is the Shahada. It's a profession of faith. People say, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Sometimes they'll say it in Arabic. Prayer is also really important, the 5 times of prayer every day. Fasting, including Ramadan. Giving to the poor, sometimes called almsgiving. And also pilgrimage, which is travel to Mecca once in their lifetimes, if they can, if it's financially viable for them. I'll zero in on a couple of these. Many Muslims pray 5 times a day, usually facing Mecca and using a prayer mat. It's considerate to try to plan your activities with your Muslim friends around those times to prayer, but keep in mind that they change a bit throughout the year because they're tied to sunrise and sunset. So you can always do a quick Google search to see what the prayer times in your area are at any given time. And it might be that when you're hanging out with your Muslim friend, you might hear an alert go off on their phone, and they might choose to leave the room for 5 to 10 minutes to wash up and begin their prayers. So once a year, many Muslims observe the season of Ramadan. For a whole month, from sunrise to sunset, they don't eat or drink anything. And then they close the day, once the sun has gone down, with a big meal called an iftar, a really joyful occasion, often. Some people are exempted from fasting. For example, if they're pregnant, if they're ill, if they're traveling, if they're breastfeeding, or if they're a child. So Ramadan is a time for focusing on God and being together. As our Open Homes friend Muhammad says, God has commanded us to fast so we can feel what the hungry poor feel. Ramadan can sometimes be a hard reminder for people of all the things they miss about their home country and about their families back home. At the end of the month, they celebrate Eid, a time of lots of celebration and being around friends and family. It can be a lot like our Christmas or our Easter. A few things to remember during Ramadan. Try not to eat or drink around someone who's fasting, but if you do, it's not a huge deal. Count yourself lucky if you're invited to an iftar dinner to break the fast. You will probably eat some fantastic food. And third, gift giving is a big part of Eid. People will often buy new clothes and get dressed up a bit. So it can be a really thoughtful way to acknowledge your friend's religion and to show them that they have community here, even though they're really far from their family and friends, to give them a little gift when Eid comes around. You may have heard that there are some things that Muslims generally don't eat, like pork. Halal just means lawful or permitted, and it means that the food is okay to eat within the bounds of Islamic law. And it might be because it's from the right part of the animal, like it's not from the hindquarters, or it might be that it's the right kind of animal, as in it's not pork. There are also certain guidelines to follow in the slaughtering of the animal, and if those guidelines are followed, then it means the meat is halal. And some people are more or less stringent on those. Some Muslims will eat kosher food, for example, because it's kind of close to the regulations for halal. You can find halal food in the grocery store actually quite easily. It's often marked by a variety of symbols that signify that it's halal. And if you need more information about this so that you can prepare a meal for your Muslim friend, we have an information sheet that lays out all of this information and lists some grocery stores where it's easy to find halal food. Respecting our Muslim friends' dietary needs is one way we can show God's love for them and our respect for them as people. It's another way that we can extend welcome and make them feel like there's space for them to belong here in Canada. We would never want to force them to compromise their beliefs. Halal food is healthy and can be eaten by everyone. It's a small thing we can do to show welcome to our Muslim friends and to show them that they belong. Some Muslims don't encourage people of different genders to share handshakes or hugs. Some may even lower their gaze out of respect. So it's just something to keep in mind and maybe ask before you hug someone. You may have some misconceptions about Islam from the media or things you've heard on the news or just general social perceptions. So here are some things that Muslim guests wanted you to know about their religion. Islam is a religion of mercy and tolerance and love, regardless of somebody's ethnicity or color or gender. Islam commands Muslims to help the weak, respect their parents, respect their neighbors, avoid arrogance, and not to hate anyone because of their ethnicity or their faith. The acts of terrorism that you may have heard of are a distortion of Islam. Just like many Christians would want people of other religions to know that our faith is about more than crusaders and residential schools, many Muslims want Christians and people of other faiths to know that terrorists do not represent them. As our Open Homes friend Muhammad shared, there are many verses in the Quran that command Muslims to do good and do justice, and actually forbid the killing of any living thing, human or animal, without cause. The most important thing to remember is to be curious. You might be surprised to learn, for example, that Muslims deeply respect Jesus as a prophet. They believe different things about him than Christians do, but there is some common ground. Conversations about religion with Muslim friends can often be quite comfortable and interesting. Just be an active, respectful listener. Remember that Muslims believe many different things, just like Christians do, depending on their upbringing and their culture. So the best thing to do is to ask questions. You might be surprised by what you learn and by what you're able to share about your own faith in the right moments. Big thanks to our friends Mohammed and Rashida, who shared their thoughts about what Christians should know about relating respectfully to Muslims.